And joining me now on this India First special broadcast is Jayant Sinha, former Union Minister of State and a visiting professor at the London School of Economics. Sir, as always, welcome. Your appreciation, Mr. Sinha, of the Trump tariffs and India's response to it so far.
Greetings, Gaurav, and thank you very much for having me on your show. We need to be very clear that we are dealing with two different sets of tariffs here. There's one set of tariffs, the 25%, which has already been implemented, was implemented at midnight US time, Wednesday, Thursday night. Those have already been implemented, and that's the 25% that's being implemented on India's merchandise exports. So not services, but merchandise, that is goods, which includes things like gems and jewelry, pharmaceuticals, engineered goods, etc. And these represent about $86 billion worth of exports to the United States, which is our largest trading partner, and about 2% of GDP. So this is one set of tariffs that has already been implemented. Now, there's a second set of tariffs that are being discussed now, and those are an additional 25%, so that the total cumulative tariff would be 50%. These are being implemented on August 27, as per the latest announcements from President Trump, and those are still under discussions and negotiations. Those have not been implemented yet. So I think it's very important for viewers to understand that we're talking about two different sets of tariffs. And the logic behind these two different sets of tariffs are also quite different. And the processes for resolution of these will also have to be different. So it's very important to understand those. One, which has already been implemented, and the second set that is being spoken about to be implemented on August 27th.
Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, speaking at the MS Swaminathan Centenary International Conference, said India will never compromise on the interests of farmers, fishermen, and dairy farmers. The Prime Minister said, I know we will have a price to pay, and a very heavy price, but I'm ready for it. What's that heavy price that we may have to pay for this, sir?
The Honorable Prime Minister is absolutely right. There can never be any compromise on our national interest, and he deserves enormous appreciation for the principled and courageous stand that he has taken. I will also remind you that in the past as well, in the Pokhran era, when we had, of course, become a nuclear power, India as well had to face sanctions that lasted 2 or 3 years in total, which we dealt with, that had an impact on GDP growth, that had an impact on our exports. But we dealt with those sanctions, we found a way around the sanctions, and ultimately those really did benefit India, because we have now become a nuclear power and, of course, getting various concessions also as far as our nuclear energy requirements are concerned. Similarly, during the Bangladesh war, the then Prime Minister Srimati Indira Gandhi also resisted all pressure and did what was right for India. So our prime ministers throughout history have taken these principled, courageous stands, and they have shown that by taking such types of stands, it actually benefits India in the long run. And the Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji is taking a similar principled, courageous stand, and we must all support and admire, the position that he has taken. Now, in terms of impact, your specific question regarding impact, we have to, as I said, understand that there are two sets of tariffs. The first set of tariffs have already been implemented. They will impact several sectors which are quite labor intensive, like gems and jewelry, textiles, engineered goods, and so on. However, negotiations here are still going on. There are 2 or 3 sticking points, 2 or 3 places where it's not been possible to forge a compromise. But because it is absolutely in the interests of both America and India to find a compromise on those issues, I'm quite hopeful that even on this first set of tariffs, we'll come to some kind of resolution, and the expected negative impact on these sectors will actually, in the long run, not happen. So that's the first set of tariffs. Now, on the second set of tariffs, actually, this is a three-way situation, because it includes Russia as well, not just America and India. So America is trying to apply pressure on Russia to stop the war in Ukraine and to come to a peace negotiation there. And we are being drawn into it to be able to put pressure on Russia. So it's actually much more of a three-way situation. The logic of this second set of tariffs is completely different.
It indeed is, because on the 6th of August, India called the US tariffs, these additional 25%, unfair, unjustified, and unreasonable. And India has made it very clear, Russian imports ensure energy security for 1.4 billion people. India has also pointed out, look at European Union, they're getting energy worth $67.5 billion in Russia trade in 2024, and they face no penalties. So are these pressure tactics by President Trump on India even to accept the first 25%? Because there were some reports that seemed to indicate that India was trying to either have as low tariffs as possible, or just about 15% as some of the allies have.
So, Gaurav, in every negotiation, there are always pulls and pressures. And those are the kinds of pulls and pressures that we are seeing right now. But again, as I said earlier, it's absolutely in the long term interest of both the United States as well as India to develop a just settlement, to find something that is in the long term interest of both countries. And I'm very confident that the Honorable Prime Minister and the Honorable President and their teams of negotiators will find such settlements, because we have to look towards other countries. If you look at what the European Union has done, if you look at what Japan and Korea have done, if you look at what the UK has done, in all of those cases, they were able to find negotiated agreements which have brought tariffs down to levels that are around 10 or 15%. So that's where things have ended up in these other negotiations. And I'm very confident that once we deal with the sticking points, which are around agriculture, they're around dairy, they're about defense purchases, they are about buying American oil. Once these kinds of issues are settled, that we will be able to get a competitive tariff structure which is in the range of 10 or 15%. So I think that process is ongoing. I'm very sure that that process will come to a successful conclusion. Now, on the second set of tariffs, which are related to Russian oil, there the story is more complicated, because it does require Russia to forge some kind of ceasefire, some kind of peace with Ukraine. And of course, President Trump is applying pressure there as well to bring parties to an understanding. And so again, we have to wait for this process to play out rather than undertake some kind of a knee-jerk reaction. And of course, our ministers, our prime minister, are all very, very seasoned negotiators, very, very seasoned in these kinds of discussions, and they are absolutely laying out our national interest, while at the same time saying that they are absolutely open to a fair and just settlement.
So you mentioned, the post-Pokhran sanctions that America had imposed on India in 1998, 1999. The situation, of course, started changing post-2000. But 1998 and 1999, when the Kargil war happened and post-Kargil, our entire Sea King and Sea Harrier fleet was grounded because spares were not coming from the United States of America. It took 25 years to build a relationship where India and America could start trusting each other. But this imposition of tariffs, or talk of sanctions, if I may, will that not bring that suspicion back again, that if we buy American military hardware, they may put sanctions on us once again, and we will not have access to critical spares when we require them most?
These challenges are always there, and they are there with any country from whom we import defense equipment. But of course, please understand that the other country that is an exporter of defense equipment also recognizes that it's a competitive marketplace, that if these kinds of pressure tactics are implemented, then for them to be able to be seen as a reliable supplier will also be compromised. So ultimately, these situations do get resolved. Even in the Pokhran case, ultimately, the situation did get resolved, and we forged an even stronger and better understanding post that. So again, as geopolitical events unfold, as geopolitical situations develop, these kinds of challenges do come up continuously. But again, because it is very much in the interests of both the United States and India to have a good, durable settlement of these matters, I'm very confident that we will find a road out we will find a way to come to a fair settlement here as well.
India
And that's
always
been the
wanted,
history, Gaurav. So
yes.
that's why rather than get overly concerned and overly worried and overly anxious, that's what I'm saying is you need to look at the history. You need to look at situations in the past and recognize in all of those instances calmer sort of minds prevailed and ultimately good resolutions happened.
Sir, but when you look at the situation, as you know better, India's been the calmer side. India's always wanted good relations with the United States of America. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was amongst the first leaders of the bloc when he visited the United States of America. They were hoping that there'd be a deal by fall. But is there an impression, and there are many who argue that President Trump wants it my way or highway, beat every country into submission, friend or foe, and does this then take us back to the Henry Kissinger line, to be America's enemy is dangerous, but to be America's friend is fatal. We are America's friend and he's doing this to us.
Every president has their negotiating style and their worldview. And what we have to do, and our honorable prime minister is very, very experienced as a statesman, as a negotiator. He's dealt with multiple presidents. And so we will be able to, I'm sure, find a good understanding here as well. We understand that different presidents have different styles. They have different national interests and, of course, domestic constituencies that they have to deal with as well. And that does require a mature understanding, a thorough understanding of the situation, which, of course, our Honorable Prime Minister, again, going back to history, has demonstrated over and over again. So therefore, let's maintain our optimism. Let's be confident that we will find the right way out, because that will certainly happen. Again, as I said, if you look at the long-term national interests of all the parties here, particularly the United States and India, we are strategic partners. We are destined to be
Yes.
very strong long-term strategic partners.
And, just a short while back, Amitabh Kant, our G20 Sherpa, called these tariffs once in a generation opportunity for bold reforms. In your appreciation, sir, and as somebody who's been an insider, what's your appreciation? What kind of specific structural reforms do we need to undertake? We reduce logistics costs, labor laws. What should we prioritize to boost manufacturing in India to mitigate whatever, pressures may come, or, additional costs that may come in?
Gaurav, these are continuous reforms. And again, the government has been undertaking reforms over the last 10 or 12 years. Obviously, you have seen what we have done with GST, what we have done with the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, the massive build out of infrastructure that we have undertaken, the fact that we've been able to bring down our logistics costs, that we are building out our power supply, we are rapidly ramping up renewables, and so on. So continuous reforms are underway. We are becoming more and more competitive day by day. And I'll point to the fact that now some 20% of Apple's iPhones are being produced at a very competitive cost in India, and we have now somewhere between 25 to 30 billion dollars worth of smartphone exports from India. All of this has been built up over the last decade or so. So again, it's a continuous process. The PLI schemes are proving to be very effective. The work we're doing in infrastructure and bringing down costs overall for our companies is proving to be very effective, and these will continue. The big opportunity, I think, here, Gaurav, is actually increasing trade with other countries, because even as the US is rethinking the terms of its trade and how it wants to be a trading partner, other countries such as the UK, Japan, Korea, the European Union, of course, are forging for free trade agreements with each other. We've already signed several of these FTAs. And what is going to happen is that our trade with these other countries that are still committed to free trade, that are still committed to open commerce, are going to be able to increase trade among themselves. And it's a well understood principle, not just in economics, but in geopolitics as well, that we have to pursue comparative advantage. Every country has to manufacture what it is good at. And
Okay.
by doing that kind of trade, everybody does well. So the doctor should be a doctor, the teacher should be a teacher. You can't, try and combine the two together. So every
Sure.
country has to specialize in its industries.
Let me just take one more question or a couple of more questions if you permit. Mr. Sinha, Congress MP Shashi Tharoor labelled these tariffs a major blow to our exports. Now, he's suggesting if things don't work out, then you put reciprocal 50% tariff on US goods. Should India adopt that retaliatory approach right now? Or, is your suggestion to remain calm, focus on negotiations on the 25th of August and perhaps try and secure as many exemptions as we can for key sectors, pharmaceuticals, others, when the US delegation comes here?
There are two approaches that various countries have followed. Countries, as I said, like the European Union, Japan, Korea, UK, have already put in place, I think, quite effective agreements with the United States, have got 10 or 15% tariffs, and have been able to forge win-win agreements. There are other countries like China that are pursuing a more adversarial approach with tit-for-tat tariffs and so on. I think at this stage, we are much better off pursuing more optimistic resolution, aiming to do what, let's say, the UK, which is only 10% tariffs, by the way, or Japan and others have achieved. I think that sets the stage for much better, more, I think, enduring trade relationships and trade ties. And here again, I would counsel all those that believe that we should take a more adversarial approach, that our relationship with the US is much broader than just merchandise trade. And the tariffs that we're talking about pertain only to goods. We have a tremendous amount of export revenues that we're generating from services from the United States. We have capital flows from the United States. We have foreign direct investment from the United States. We have defense interests as well. So taking into account the overall relationship, we are far better off finding a positive resolution as opposed to getting into an adversarial situation. So I think it's clear, and I think that is exactly why we are pursuing this negotiated approach to find positive outcomes as opposed to taking an adversarial stance.
The Prime Minister is likely to head to China for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. External Affairs Minister would be heading to Russia shortly, we're told, and the NSA is already there. What is the signal that India is sending out in your view, sir?
That we are very much willing to discuss and find good outcomes for everyone. I think we all recognize, and we did this through the G20 process as well, and through all of our international negotiations, that our principle is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, and it's one earth, one family, one future, that if we all work together, then we will all benefit. And that, I think, has always been our approach, and we are continuing to pursue that approach.
Sir, for joining me here on this India Today special broadcast, as always, many thanks. Will that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam approach work with Donald Trump pursuing that America First policy? Of course, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also has the India First policy. Will there be middle ground? We'll be tracking that story very closely. Mr. Jayant Sinha, for joining me here on India Today, many thanks.
Thank you very much.